Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, what you and I might define as good is not necessarily what is good from the company's perspective. So, I, yeah, don't get that. That's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand, but like, if you're looking at charts and graphs and you're seeing that something isn't working and you're in charge of $1 billion franchise, it doesn't even have to be $1 billion franchise. I can tell you as someone who has managed 25 employees and millions of dollar budget, like the moment you start operating at an enterprise level, you start to have to make decisions that are not the same as when you're one person making decisions in a bubble. Because now suddenly you're making decisions that can affect other people's livelihoods, the profit of the company, if you have legal obligations to investors, legal obligations to other things. Like, there are a lot of complications when it comes to. I'm just going to fast travel down here. I don't want to try to figure out a way down from here. So what's good, like, what's good for the company is not necessarily what's good for the fans. It doesn't always match up, because fans are always going to want more of, like, but it's not necessarily something that's always going to be feasible based on if something's not working. And something might not be working for various reasons. I will say the one thing that is tricky about, and we can all criticize it all we want, but at the end of the day, we're just consumers. We're not in control of things. Disney's lawyers are notorious for being litigious. They just dropped an article, just dropped yesterday actually, talking about the canceled. So we all know they're working on a reboot of Knights of the Old Republic 1. A few years ago, Knights of the Old Republic 2 was launched onto the Switch, and they're coming out with the Switch 2 version. And as part of that, there was this announcement made that they were going to be including all of the modded DLCs that have been put out by the community over the year into this version of the game that was coming out on the Switch. And at the very last minute, even after 2 years of all this hard work and putting it all together, Disney lawyers came in and said, that can't happen. You're not allowed to release that community modded content because it's not, from a legal's perspective, it hasn't been cleared for all of these reasons. And so it launched without it. A lawsuit occurred because someone went out and said, false advertising, you said it was going to have this, it didn't have this, we're suing you. Asper Media had to go to court, and as a result, all of these documents are made available to the public. This news article just went out yesterday for those of you who haven't read this yet. This is the perfect example of what we're talking about. Disney lawyers axed the modded content being added to that release, and this has all been revealed now in these public court documents. Hundreds of emails and conversations between the legal teams of LucasArts, Lucasfilms, Disney, Asper Media, and this other party who were handling the mods. When you are managing a multi-billion-dollar franchise, like, there are decisions that have to be made from the perspective of legal, which are not going to match up ever with fans, ever. I can say this as a small-time creator because I have created IPs. I have book series, I have video games that I've done. Like, I've worked on a lot of creative projects over my career. And exploitation of an IP, not exploitation in the negative sense, but exploitation in the sense of, I have this IP, I want to exploit it. This is the legal term for it. I'm exploiting the IP for every possible, I'm going to have a book series, I'm going to have a TV series, I'm going to have a film franchise, I'm going to sell lunchboxes and underwear and bed sheets and action figures and a comic book series and a graphic novel series, and we're going to do an animated show, and we're going to do all of these things, right? When you have to protect your IP, this is the thing, because if you don't protect your IP, what happens is you have some asshole who decides that they're going to have a home kiln in their house, and they're going to make Stormtrooper coffee mugs, right? They're going to make Stormtrooper coffee mugs, and they're going to sell those on Etsy, and they're going to sell them on TikTok, and they're going to sell them on Instagram, and that person might make $1 million. selling something that they didn't create. It's not to say they didn't put hard work into creating that object, but they don't own the creative rights to the stormtrooper. They are robbing someone else of that income. That's literally, and you can argue all you want. Well, it's a big billion-dollar company. They don't need the income. That's not what it's about. You have to understand what is copyright. Copyright defends you. If you, the random incel living in your mom's basement, decide to pick up a guitar and create a track that you then release on SoundCloud, and you want to become an artist and a musician and make money playing the guitar, trust me, you want your rights to be protected so that you and you alone can monetize, monopolize, and exploit that song for the rest of your life, and that you can make a living with that thing. So you should always celebrate when companies are defending their legal trademarks and copyrights, because it helps you, the random schmuck living in your mom's basement, become an artist, become a musician, to become a game developer, to become an author, or some sort of creative talent who uses their imagination to create things. Because if we didn't have those rights, then if you created something, someone would be able to take your creation, go to their home kiln, make an object using something that you created, and then sell that on Etsy or Instagram or whatever, and make a bunch of money that you should have earned instead when you are the person who created it. So that's why it's never a simple conversation about a company canceling something when the series was good and the fans wanted more. It is always a case of what's good for the brand. And what's good for the brand is watching your bottom lines, making sure that you are, defending against copyright and trademark situations, but also in the case of shows not getting, this is part of that whole conversation, which is when you're managing hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people and etc., you have to, it's a big picture, man. It's a big picture. That show didn't resonate for whatever reason. There was backlash for whatever reason. And you can cry Kathleen Kennedy until you're blue in the fucking face. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. The way social media has today, we have cancel culture. And cancel culture it's the vigilante mob justice thing, which has been proven throughout the course of history to be a bad way of doing things. That's why vigilantes are not allowed in civilized societies. We don't have vigilante justice in civilized societies. However, cancel culture borders on vigilante justice because you can get a big enough crowd or a loud enough majority who start to make their voices heard, and they can impact a show's success or failure. And we, the actual fans, would love to see more of something, but the company looks at it and goes, you know what? We spent $200 million to make that show. It did not recoup. We would be taking a huge risk to do a second season when the first season did not make it. Look at the Willow TV show. I fucking loved that thing. It was awesome. I got ripped to shreds for reviewing that show on my YouTube channel like 3 years ago. I got called all sorts of horrible trash names. I got called a sellout. I got called horrible names because I liked the Willow show and talked positively about it. And then within 6 months, Disney pulled it off of Disney Plus. Not doing a season 2, not going. And you can say, I don't give a shit if you say that it's trash. That's fine. This is when you have the perfect example of what I'm describing. A show comes out, many people who were fans of the Willow show, a Willow film, also were fans of the show, and we wanted more Willow. But then you have this modern audience who are like, it's woke, it's got a female lead character, and she's a lesbian, and blah. And you have this incel movement that rose up against it, and not enough people watched the show. And then the numbers came in and they said, holy shit, we lost a ton of money making this show Willow. We can't risk that again, so we're just not going to do a second season. So that's the same thing with the Acolyte season 2 or season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett or whatever, you know what I mean? It's never as cut and dry as fans want it to be, because Right, as Ali said, there's a big disconnect between fans and business decisions. They automatically are always going to say, it's greed, it's corporate greed. Is it though? Isn't it more realistic that there is a kernel of business decision making at play, which you would know if you actually took an economics class or you paid attention when you were in college or in grade school to simple math? Like, it's not rocket science. You know, you spend $100 million on something, it only brings $20 million in. You look at that and go, well, can I afford to take the 80 billion loss? In some cases, yes, because it's a tax write-off if you're a big enough company. But then it's also like, can we afford to put another $100 million in? Or in the case of Hawkeye, Hawkeye comes out, Jeremy Renner does it. He then has his accident, goes away, recoups from the accident. They go back to Jeremy Renner and say, we'd like to do a season 2, but we're only going to pay you half of the money that we paid you for season 1 because season 1 didn't live up to our expectations. We don't have the budget for season 2 that we had for season 1. We'd like you to do it, but we want you to do it for half the money. And Jeremy Renner went, yeah, fuck off. I'm not asking for more money, but I need you to pay me the same amount that you paid me the first time. Like, I'm not going to take a reduction in pay to keep doing this show. But the numbers came back and showed that Hawkeye did not perform well enough for them to justify spending the same amount of money on a second season of it. That's called business. Like, if I sell pizzas at my restaurant and one day I decide to sell a new type of a pizza and it comes out and it doesn't do well, I'm not going to keep selling that pizza on the menu, right?